Hello, thanks for tuning in. In this episode of Guitars, Amps and Pedals, we are looking at the Ibanez Prestige AZ2204N in black. I've heard these guitars described as strat killers, a combination of classic design and modern functionality, vintage meets ultra-modern. Well, let's take a deep dive into what the Ibanez AZ2204N has to offer. The first thing that struck me about the AZ was how nice the case is. A perfectly fitting case moulded with the Ibanez logo, custom fitted to the product line. The plush red lining makes the guitar pop upon opening it for the first time. The case candy includes a manual, and inside the Team J-Craft pencil case we have the trem arm, and probably the best multi-tool on the market for all of your adjustment needs. Released during the pandemic, this iteration of the AZ was certainly overshadowed by world events, and when stocks finally hit the shelves a year on, the buzz seemed to have deflated a little. However, I would describe the AZ2204N as the guitar Ibanez was always missing. Each and every year they release what seems like an infinite number of pointy guitars, ever sharper and more metal than the last. And until the original AZs came out, there wasn't much from Ibanez for players like me. Aside from a deep appreciation of the technical abilities of the myriad of Ibanez artists such as Vai, Satriani and Gilbert, musically I lean towards classic rock from the 70s, and I feel at home with a Strat or a Les Paul. And despite owning multiple RGs over the years, I always struggle with the locking trims and wafer-thin wizard necks. And dare I say it, I don't enjoy the usual high output pickups that they come with. The headstock design harks back to the 70s with a vintage logo and a more rounded, softer style when compared to its pointy brethren. The Goto Magnum lock tuners have a self-locking mechanism which I found really strange at first. As you tighten the newly threaded string through its post, they automatically cinch up nice and tight, and once your string is at pitch, nothing moves. Undoing them for string changes requires something to loosen the post, a coin for example. I find this weird and slightly annoying when compared to the more traditional style with a wheel on the back. We've got a modern string tree and a bone nut capping off the rosewood fingerboard, classy looking mother of pearl dot markers in the usual places, and 22 jumbo stainless steel frets with an approximate 9 to 12 inch compound radius. On top of which we have loom inlay dots which have become almost as fashionable as the roasted maple neck. The S-Tech treatment makes the neck really rich and dark. It's super smooth, a comfortable oval C shape, and it smells great. The neck carve is slightly wider than the Stratocaster, but on a par with a medium C neck in terms of its depth and approximate shape. Essentially, if you play Strats, this will feel pretty similar. The body shape is very familiar and has deep comfort contours for the arm and belly. The horns are deeper than a Strat, and obviously the heel is dramatically sculpted for better access to the upper frets. The bridge is decked from the factory, and at first I kept this setup as a hardtail, which overall I wasn't enamoured with. Honestly, from the factory this guitar was not great. It was poorly set up and felt like it had been rushed out the door to meet backlog in demand. The brass saddles were perfectly intonated, but there were a few minor issues that needed to be fixed. Some of the fret ends are sharp, not from fret sprout, instead from not being finished properly, although they are all perfectly level. I struggled to play this guitar at first as it felt stiff, rigid and clunky under my fingers. I had to file the nut slots and fettle the action down at both ends in order to get an even height across the strings. The trem bar felt loose even when tightened to its maximum tension. If I attempted to use the arm, there was a tiny amount of play before the bridge raised up from the body, making it feel really unresponsive. I've since set the trem to float by raising the pivot posts up, reducing the 5 springs to 3 and readjusting the height and intonation. This has made a huge difference to the guitar. Before these adjustments I wasn't going to keep it, but now I play it all of the time. Now that I've spent a little bit of time dialing in the bridge, the tuning stability is perfect. And the stiffness I felt at first has now been relieved by the small amount of give from the floating bridge. This one weighs in at a very comfortable 3.53 kilos or approximately 7.8 pounds, which is perfect for me. The big strap buttons mean there's no real need for strap locks, and the output jack is cleverly positioned to keep the guitar lead out of your way. I will say, however, that the narrow recess means my Boss wireless won't fit into the socket. Under the tortoiseshell pickguard there's very clean shielded HSS routing. The pickups are clearly labelled Fortuna, and it looks like there's a proprietary Ibanez 5-way PCB style blade switch with quick connectors running to the Dynamics 9 switch. The volume and tone pots look tidy, and there's an extra ground lead which I always like to see. The wiring here sets this apart from Strat. I think of Stratocasters as guitars that can be modified if the urge takes me. With this guitar, however, I'd be nervous to change anything. It would be easy to try new pickups, just unsolder the wires to the switch terminals and install the new ones. Maybe that's a future video, but I suspect modifying this guitar would have a negative effect on its value. Seymour Duncan have especially created the Fortuna pickups, and the pairing of the alter switch and the dynamic switching system gives us 9 different pickup combinations. I've always favoured the HSS configuration, and this layout works very well. Honestly, I will only really use 3 or 4 settings on a regular basis, but there's plenty of versatility available for any musical situation. As we can see, Ibanez have managed to squeeze out just about every possible combination of pickups without causing option paralysis. With the alter switch off, position 1 is the neck single coil, position 2 is the neck and middle in parallel, position 3 is the middle single coil on its own, with position 4 being the middle and inside bridge single coil. Position 5 in both cases is always going to be the bridge humbucker. With the alter switch on, position 6 is the neck and middle in series, similar to a humbucker this one. In position 7, neck and outside bridge single coils. Position 8, all 3 pickups are on with the neck and middle wired in series like a humbucker. Position 9 is the bridge outside single coil. I wonder how much extra work went into balancing these pickups out to retain a more even volume spread throughout the positions. If you're familiar with traditional coil taps and splits, you're no doubt familiar with the unusable volume drop that makes some split humbuckers sound anemic. These are really even, making the guitar very usable in live situations. But don't just take my word for it, let's hear the pickups played through in order. I've recorded 2 different BTs for this one. The first I recorded before I set the trem, and the second afterwards. In BT1 I was struggling to play. It made it much harder to get what I wanted out of the instrument, and the result was sore fingers and missed notes. In track 2 I was far more relaxed whilst playing. I felt like the guitar was no longer fighting me, which made it way more enjoyable. I went for music that reflected this, so hopefully my journey is represented in the 2 examples. Both backing tracks are purchased from Elevated Jam Tracks. There's a link to them below. Ibanez makes guitars at all price points to suit just about everyone now, and for me they've filled a gap with the AZ2204N. Based upon Ibanez's reputation for excellence, I imagine that every issue I've experienced with this particular guitar is likely to be a one-off, and will probably not affect you and yours. However, I felt it was important to be honest in this review. I have experience with setups and some fretwork, so I'm okay with minor problems like these, but someone who doesn't might be pretty disappointed with a high-end Japanese guitar that seemed less than perfect. I am keeping this. I will be gigging with it as my number 1. It is ideal in terms of its flexibility and perfect tuning stability. Now I've got it playing the way I want, it's the perfect workhorse guitar. And if I ever do sell it, it will be to buy the Prussian Blue metallic one. I got this in black because it was discounted. I'm going to rate this guitar 9 out of 10, but the question was, is it a Strat killer? And the answer is no. But for me, it is an RG killer. For anyone who can't stand pointy guitars, thin necks, high output pickups and poxy locking trems, I highly recommend this guitar. Let me know what you think in the comments section and hit like or dislike. And if you would like to be informed of any future content, please subscribe and ring the bell. Thanks for watching.